So the definition of a square root. Consider the real numbers a and b. This is the definition of a square root. A is a square root of b if and only if a squared is equal to b. Please note that any number squared is always positive. Therefore, b is always positive. That statement right here tells me this right here. If I have a statement a squared is equal to b, b is always positive because a squared, any number squared is positive. Example, 5 is a square root of 25 since 5 squared is 25. But negative 5 is also a square root of 25 since in parentheses, negative 5 squared is 25. Please make note that this negative is inside the parentheses there. This, as a side note, that's negative 25. Okay? But negative 5 squared is 25. So this dude right here, this statement and this statement right here say that 5 and negative 5 are square roots of 25. Therein lies the confusion. Because if I ask you for the square root of 25, if you say 5 and negative 5, you're wrong. Well, it depends on how I phrase that question. You have to take the question in context. The next few lines will explain what I'm trying to say. The symbol of square root of b is equal to this guy here. It means to find the positive square root of b. This means to find the positive square root of b. The 2 does not have to be written. How do I denote the negative square root? The symbol negative means negative square root of b. Therefore, the square roots of 25 are positive square root of 25, which is 5, and the negative square root of 25, which is negative 5. Please note that is only 5. The square root of 25 is only 5. If I ask you what are the square roots of 25, it's positive square root of 25 and negative square root of 25, 5 and negative 5. Okay? The other note here, you cannot square root a negative number, but numbers can have negative square roots. That is, you can't put a negative number into that symbol because b is always positive. Therefore, the square root of b is always positive. B can't be negative. Why can't B be negative? Well, B is always positive by definition, so the square B is always positive, square root of B is always positive. The above leads to the following definition. The square root of x squared is the absolute value of x. I'm not going to leave this up there forever, but do you see up over my, should be right above my head, where I have that up there. The square root of x squared is the absolute value of x. And we're going to talk a lot about this down the road. This is extremely important. If I have this equation, x squared is equal to 49, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Hey, what's the square root of x squared? The square root of x squared is the absolute value of x. Hey, what's the square root of 49? What's the square root of 49? It's just 7. And now if I have the absolute value of x as 7, and we did these in Algebra 2 absolute value equations, I know x is positive 7, x is a negative 7. If you look at page 3, you see two properties that we're going to use to simplify all roots, not just square roots, not just cube roots, but all roots. These two properties right here. The nth root of A times the nth root of B is the nth root of A times B. The nth root of A over B is the nth root of A over the nth root of B. Back to page 1. Don't know if I go back to page 1. I don't know if they can hear me on the video or not. So square root of 125 isn't simplified because this 125 has a perfect square factor. Anybody know what that perfect square factor is? 125 has a factor that's a perfect square. 25. So the square root of 125, we're going to write it, we're going to simplify this as the square root of 25 times the square root of 5. Why? Because 5 times 25 is 125. What's the square root of 25? That's the simplification of square root of 125. Square root of 8x cubed. We're going to split that bad boy up, and we're going to write that first and foremost as square root of 8 times the square root of x cubed. Does 8 have any perfect square factors in it? Am I recording? Okay, thank you. Does 8 have perfect square factors? It does. 4, so this is going to be the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. Does x cubed have perfect square factors? X squared. So I'm a law of exponents. This is x squared times x. And we did that. Heads wrapped around this last year in Algebra 2. What's the square root of 4? 2. Square root of 2. What's the square root of x squared? Absolute value of x. Square root of x. And then our final answer, we're going to put those guys back together. Our final answer is going to be 2 absolute value of x square root of 2x. So let us now proceed to our discussion of cube roots. Cube roots are easier because you don't have to worry about the daggone absolute value. You don't have to worry about two answers. Cube roots only have one solution or one simplification. Here's the definition. A is the cube root of b if and only if a cubed is b. Definition. Please note b can be positive or negative. 2 is the cube root of 8 since 2 cubed is 8. Negative 2 is the cube root of negative 8 since a negative 2 cubed is negative 8. The symbol cube root of b means to find the cube root of b. The 3 does have to be written. Example, find the cube root of 64. That is, find the cube root of 64, which is equal to 4. Here's how some people like to write this so they can see this. Isn't 64? 64 is what we call perfect cube. So I could write it, and you don't have to, but I could write this way, and it might help down the road. Isn't 4 cubed 64? And I'm asking for what number times itself is 4 cubed? Well, duh, 4. What number times itself is 4? It's going to be 4. This power and this root, and we'll talk about that Wednesday. We'll see why they don't cancel each other, but they become 1. This is equal to 4. Why? Because 4 cubed is 64. Find the cube root of negative 125. The cube root of negative 125 is negative 5, since negative 5 cubed is negative 125. You could write it this way if you want, and this might help. And you can see what's being cubed is the negative 5. So that's negative 5. Finding the cube root of expressions with variables is easy. What's the cube root of y cubed? What cubed, and this is the exact question you ask. What cubed is y cubed? What, why? Hello? Why? Oh, crap. Am I videoing? I am. What cubed is n to the 6th? Pause the video. So I have the cube root of n to the 6th, which is the same as the cube root of n squared, cubed, so therefore that is n squared. But if we look at this guy right here, and we're looking at square roots, here's an example. I have the 64 of x to the 6th power. And the square root is not written, so we're assuming that that's the square root. And we're not assuming, we're knowing that's the square root. So this is going to be the square root of 64 and the square root of, what squared is x to the 6th? X cubed. So the square root of 64 is 4. 8, sorry. Stupid. Sorry, I didn't mean to be stupid. 8 what? But here's the problem.